Alright, just a quick video on the gas tank for the Daytona. Pulled it out this morning, took it, wire brushed the whole thing, used a rust converter on it, and now I'm getting ready to do the zinc coating. You can see I did a test there, so gonna spray it, a couple coats, and then we'll be back, see what it looks like. After wire brushing it, I used this Pickle X20 one-step metal prep. It's a rust converter and actually takes away grease. I didn't have that problem as I cleaned it really well. But that's good stuff. I've used it quite a bit. And then the zinc coating, I'm using this Bright Cold Galvanizing Spray by Anti-Seize Technology. And this is essentially the same stuff as the Eastwood tank coat. So there's the tank with the coating on it. Come out pretty good. We'll let that dry a couple of days. I'll scuff it very lightly with Scotch-Brite and then put a coat of clear on it. So probably a little more than I need to do for this vehicle, but if I'm going to do it, I like to do it right. I wish we could see inside the tank, because it is pretty clean in there. Actually really clean, so I hate that. We might get a shot in there later, put a light through the cinder hole. So after letting the zinc cold galvanizing dry for 24 hours, we have sprayed the tank with several coats of clear. And this isn't any special clear, it's just Duplicolor engine enamel gloss clear. So it's looking good. Just got done spraying it, and we'll let it sit outside, hang outside here for about a half hour or so, and then I'll take it in, and tomorrow we'll put it on the car. So making progress. Alright, let's talk about fuel cinders for a few minutes. This is the fuel cinder that came out of the Daytona. Actually in very good shape. I did check the ohms, it does work. I did clean the contact area with contact cleaner, and it did have a good cork on it. Here I broke that away. Let's take a close up of that. I broke that away to show you the washer that holds the cork on the end. The washer slid on, and then the end of the shaft is just pressed to elongate it to keep the washer on. What we're going to do is replace that with one of these new style floats. I get these from a friend of mine at church who runs a repair shop, and he saves them for me because they're really good for updating the older style cinders for the new fuel. It's easy to do. What happens is the new ethanol fuel eats the shellac away, and the cork starts deteriorating. This cork was actually in good shape, except for the shellac was just so-so. And I've tried re-shellacking these, and it really didn't work out too well. So first we got to decide which of these two we're going to use. There's not too much difference. I kind of like the bigger one though, so let me take a look at that, and then we'll be back. I've decided to use the one that's slightly smaller because I like the way that has a slot cut in the end to retain the float, to keep it from spinning around. So what I'll need to do is shorten up the so I decided to use the shorter float. The reason I like that, it has a slot in the end to keep the float from spinning. So it fits real well in here. So what I have to do is shorten up this rod a little bit so I can put the original washer back on and then crimp the end of it in the vise. And I've done this before, it's pretty easy. Alright, let's get the distributor out of the vise. This is the Refurb distributor for the Daytona. This is the one that came in it. Studebaker window distributor. New points condenser set. New cap, new rotor. Everything lubed up. Everything checked. Make sure it's in good shape. So you'll see that later. So let's lay this aside. And what we're going to do, you can see the little washer on the end, and I've shortened up the shaft, and what we're going to do is just press the heck out of it in the vise to flatten the end of it to keep the washer on. Pretty simple. Alright, here's the final result of the flattening. Hopefully you can see that. Sometimes I have a little trouble. My screen on this camera rotates, but if I rotate it too far, it's upside down, and it's hard to get things positioned correctly while I'm looking at a picture it's upside down. But here's the flatten end, and so that'll stay in. So there is the finished, modernized fuel sender for the Daytona. Alright, let's get the sender in. Now, I only use cork gaskets. I've tried the rubber ones, I've tried the rubber cork, and nothing seems to seal as well. To me, is the original cork gaskets. You need to get the holes lined up. They only fit one way. Get the holes lined up. Get the sender in. Sender's the same way. Holes only fit one way. I didn't think you wanted to watch me fidgeting with the screws, so got the screws started. Got to be careful not to cross thread them, and don't tighten them too much. I've reused the original washers. I keep meaning to order some of these copper annular gaskets. The factory didn't use just flat washers on these. They used actually a copper asbestos annular washer, and you can't get, well, yeah, I think you can still get the asbestos from aircraft, but they also make a graphite, annular copper graphite, and I need to order some of those for this application. But I haven't had an issue with reusing these. I think the flat washers that you commonly see offered, I think they're too hard. That's just my personal opinion, though. But I've had an issue with them. Just don't over tighten these. You end up pulling the middle up, and then it doesn't seal well. Just alternate back and around. Tighten them up evenly. You can always go back and tighten them some more. If you get it too tight, it doesn't do much good to loosen them. And I'm not putting a whole lot on here. It seems like I am, but I'm just turning it a little bit each time. So I'll go back and check those after a day or so and see if they need to have any more tightening. So that's it. Let's get the gas tank in. Alright, fuel tank's back in. The fill pipe's hooked up. I made a new seal that seals the trunk there. Those aren't hard to make. You get the material at about any gasket place. So let's take a look underneath, see what it looks like. And here's the fuel tank underneath. New fuel hose. And I'm kind of odd. I like to use those original style clamps. If they're sized correctly, I don't have a problem with them. So that's another major job done. So let's go up front, look at the fuel pump, rebuilt fuel pump, and the new filter. Continuing with the fuel system, I took the top of the carburetor off to see what it looked like inside, and I'll show you the bowl and everything here in a minute. But I don't think this carb's ever been rebuilt. Looking at the gold color still inside. It was really clean inside. Like I say, I'll show that to you. The one thing I did decide to do was soak the accelerator pump in neat's foot oil. So that's done. Got that done. It's soaked for probably 3 days. So we'll put that back in on the cover and reassemble that the top of the carburetor. I do have a new gasket to use. A little bit different gasket. I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I can't remember if I went through this gasket carburetor or not. But it has a solid gasket here. That may be the 64 part number. The 64 had a different part number than the earlier carbs. One thing that I believe that probably would help, when these gaskets would shrink, you would get the gasket pulling out from between the body and the cover right there. But these, with this, having this, don't have that big hole right there, they may not do that then. I don't know. But anyway, we'll put a new gasket on it. We'll evenly tighten the screws, but I'll show you the carb here in a few minutes. Alright, real quick, I just wanted to show you this carb, how clean it is. The float is very free. I don't know if you're going to be able to see a whole lot here, but it does look real good. I was surprised. So let's go ahead and get the top back on it and hook up the fuel on. Alright, fuel system is pretty well buttoned up. All I got to do is get a new air filter out, but top of the carb's back on, fuel line's back on. Here's the rebuilt fuel pump, and you can see the filter. Let's see if we can get a better shot of that. It's a inline clear filter, so I can see if anything's getting in it. Once I'm sure that everything's pretty good as far as clean, I can take it out. But the one thing about it, people say don't put a filter in front of the fuel pump, but these fuel pumps originally had a paper filter in them, a pleated paper filter. but those are not available anymore, at least not that I've been able to find. So the kit had a very fine mesh screen, and that's in there, but that's one reason I've got that filter there. And it is cleanable, so if it gets really stopped up, I can always, on the side of the road, if I have to, take it off and clean it. So fuel system's all ready. Oh, the other thing I need to do is, I don't know what happened to the return springs on the two return springs. One goes down from here down to the cover, and then one from here to this clip right there. So I've got to get those. I've got some new ones of those, so we'll get those out and get those on. So, but for most closely, the fuel system is back together.